When have you seen someone's entitlement come back to bite them? I was flying first class when an 11-year-old boy came running down the aisle, telling me he wanted my seat. He pointed right at me and said, "Dad, Mom, I want this one. Why is he sitting here?" I glanced around, confused, as his parents walked up calmly behind him. They looked wealthy and completely unfazed by their son's tantrum. A flight attendant hurried over, visibly uncomfortable, and gently asked me to move to economy. I tried explaining I'd booked this seat for the extra space to relax, but the attendant spoke to me as if I had no choice, talking about extra flight points or a free coffee I'd get during the flight as an apology. To make matters worse, the dad interrupted her. "Look, it's easier for everyone if you just move, man." I thought about arguing, making a scene, but instead, I just reluctantly grabbed my stuff. As I stood up, the kid grinned at me smugly and said loudly, "See, Dad? He knows he doesn't belong here." His parents said nothing, didn't even glance my way, just ushered him into my seat. Settling into economy, I tried shaking it off, but throughout the flight, I heard that same kid's voice whining loudly, demanding snacks, extra pillows, complaining about everything. Each time I walked past for the restroom, he'd smirk and loudly mock my clothes, telling other passengers how he kicked me out. Everyone seemed uncomfortable by him, but the parents didn't even bother correcting him. They were too absorbed in their own luxury to care. Mom had her purse sprawled open on the empty seat next to her, headphones on, watching a movie, completely ignoring her kid's increasingly obnoxious behavior. But about halfway through the flight, things got serious. I suddenly heard loud commotion coming from first class. A flight attendant rushed past me, clearly panicked. Minutes later, the captain's voice came urgently over the speakers. "If there's a doctor on board, we have an urgent medical emergency in first class." Here's the thing. I actually am a doctor, coincidentally enough. And so, I stood up and headed forward, telling the flight attendant, "I'm a doctor, let me through." But then I reached first class, and I saw the same kid slumped in his seat, barely conscious, breathing shallowly. His mom was hysterically holding an open bottle of prescription pills, realizing far too late he'd swallowed several, mistaking them for candy. The dad looked terrified. The attendant told them I was a doctor, and they seemed super relieved, until they turned and saw who I was, the same guy they had bullied away from the seat. They started apologizing profusely to me, looking at me like they wanted the ground to swallow them whole. The dad begged me to help them despite what they had done. There was definitely an evil part of me that wanted to say screw it and walk away, but I knew I couldn't. A kid's life on the line. And so, I told the parents I'd accept their apologies later, and started assessing the situation. After a lot of medical jargon I won't bore you with, I was able to finally get the kid's breathing and heart rate under control. As we finally prepared for emergency landing, the boy began regaining consciousness. He blinked slowly, clearly confused and frightened. His parents hovered silently, visibly shaken, embarrassment and gratitude written all over their faces. As soon as the kid saw I was here, he went to freak out, but when his parents explained everything to him, he looked at me completely differently. He murmured, "I'm sorry," and I saw a hint of genuine remorse in his eyes. The flight attendants were incredibly kind afterward, repeatedly apologizing for how I was treated earlier, and offering me a recently opened up first-class seat. It was interesting seeing how quickly their act shifted. After landing, the family approached me once more by baggage claim. The dad shook my hand firmly, looking me right in the eye. "Thank you again. We'll never forget this." Funny thing is, I'd booked that first-class ticket to recover from a long overseas medical mission, just needing some rest. Didn't expect to end up saving the life of someone who made sure I didn't get it, but honestly, I'd do it all over again. Moments like these remind you that humility and kindness matter more than any seat on a plane.